Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. The empty nest. As our kids get older, many women can anticipate the sadness of this stage, but we have a harder time imagining happiness. Join us as we share how you can prepare for and thrive in the empty nest. Let's get started. Listeners, today we're talking about how to prepare for and thrive in the empty nest. And we're joined by a guest who's passionate about this subject. So passionate, in fact, that she gives classes each year on this subject, and Julie and I both enjoyed them and found them very helpful. So today we're joined by Jenny Watson, and Julie and I are so excited for you to hear what she has to say. Jenny, welcome to Midlife Matters.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to see both of you.
I think we were in your class probably about 5 years ago, and so I'm sure you have even more new things to share, and I'm so excited to hear from you today.
I did her class twice.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We did. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, Jenny, why don't you introduce yourself to listeners? Tell them a little bit about yourself, about your family.
I am married to Steve. We're coming up on our 40th anniversary.
Wow.
We had 4 children, and I always wanted a big family, but 4 was our limit. But they're all married now, so I feel like I have 8. And then we have 12 grandkids.
Wow.
So the oldest one is 9, so lots of little people running around. One of our daughters lives in our neighborhood, one lives in the area, and then 2 live, one's 3 hours away, one's 5 hours away. So we're able to make a lot of connections with them. I loved being a mom and always would have a part-time job here and there, but basically being a mom was kind of my career. And even my dad and people in my family would say, "What are you going to do when they grow up?" And I would think, "I don't know yet." And when they left, I was excited for them, excited for me. And I know everyone feels differently about it. But my overwhelming theme was, I know that I have more dreams and more things to do. I just don't know what they are. So that sort of started me focusing on what do I want to do from midlife to the end of my life, which I hope is a long way away.
Yeah.
It's a lot of years.
I love that attitude of, I know I've got more to do. I just don't know what it is yet. And
Yeah.
I think Julie and I kind of feel like we're there.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, and that's what I so appreciated about your workshop. I think you call it workshop.
Yeah.
And just that it got you thinking about that instead of just seeing it as leftover time or time to fill.
Retire or quit.
Yeah. From your workshop, I know that you have talked to lots and lots of women. What are some of the biggest adjustments that you hear from women, like that they have to make in midlife after their kids have left the home, and how have you helped them make those adjustments?
Well, I want to say that, first of all, I want to, we don't have to continue to refer to it that way, but I love to call my workshops play shops because I think that part of it is, now let me back up to say this, really talking to many, many women in this stage of life. There are women that can hardly get out of bed because they're very sad. And there are women that are singing the hallelujah chorus because they've just didn't know that they could ever get to this point alive and whole. So, women are all over the board. But I think the biggest adjustments actually one of the biggest is time, because when everyone leaves, you're just kind of at night going, okay, we would have been going to football games. And we're sitting in front of the television like, what did we even used to do? And I think just the extra time and what are you going to do with your time, whether you're a working mom or a full-time in the home mom, it frees up a whole lot of your time. Everybody has 24 hours in the day, and however many kids you have, they take it all. However much you work, you fill it up. And so when they leave, there's just a big time adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I think, what word do I want to use? Significance, identity. There's kind of an identity crisis because a mom is not your necessarily role as a verb. You still are a mom, but you're not mothering as much anymore. And so it's like, what am I doing? What is my role as a mom? So I think kind of time and identity are the two biggest things to figure out now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just curious, do some parents seem more susceptible to the grief of an empty nest than others? Like you said, some are singing the Hallelujah chorus and some are sad. Have you noticed, is there a difference between moms that have worked outside the home versus stay-at-home moms, or, have you noticed any differences?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is personality. You would think, obviously, that women that have had a full-time career might have an easier adjustment because they have some big thing taking up a lot of their day. But I don't think that's always true. And I even think there've been many dads who have even mourned more than the moms, and cried when they've dropped their kids off to college. And so I think it's kind of a personality thing. The thing I think is interesting is I really believe both ends of the spectrum, it's still mom guilt. Moms that don't feel sad are wondering, like, what's wrong with me? Like, my friend can barely hold it together and I'm not sad. What's wrong with me? Or women that are really sad are thinking, everybody has to go through this. Why am I having such a hard time? So I honestly could not even identify to you categories of people that have different responses. I just think we're all different and everybody's response is okay and shouldn't surprise you.
Yeah. So it's just so personal, I guess.
It's personal. Yes.
Yeah. And I kind of find myself vacillating back and forth, like happy about it and then sad about it. And then, and I think people are confused. I think people want you to be like all or nothing, know, like if you've said you're happy about it, then they don't want to hear about, well, now today you're sad about it.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to get on one page emotionally because, like you said, there is a lot of time to fill, and it's not even like you're bored, but you just don't. It's so weird to have time. Like it's been so many years since you've had genuine free time that it's hard to know if it's okay to fill it with these certain activities. Like, is that even an okay thing to fill your time with? We don't know.
Yes. Well, what's interesting about this is coming to me as we're talking about this, our adjustment to our kids leaving also depends on how well they're doing or not, or how worried we are about them or not.
That's a good point.
I feel like if our children seem to be thriving, it's a much easier, what is the cliche that you're only as happy as your saddest child,
or
like
your least happy
child,
kid.
or whatever that is. I do think there's probably more truth to that than anything else. And that also causes an emotional roller coaster because we all know your child could call you from wherever they are, whether it's college or early marriage, and be in the most devastating place. And then you're worried about it and you call them to check on them and they don't even remember like that was even a big deal. And you're like, oh my gosh, I lost sleep over that.
I know, that's true.
Yeah.
True.
Hard.
And I think that we always think that maybe, like, if you're a stay-at-home mom, you think, well, the working mom isn't having any problems with this. Or the working mom might say, oh, well, a different mom isn't having problems. Like, we always think that maybe other people are making a better adjustment than we are. But it is an adjustment for everyone, you're saying. Like, everybody's adjusting in some way.
Yeah, and it's like grief in general. Grief can just hit you in waves, and then you're okay for a while. And then something will bring back a memory or something, and you're sad again.
You're true. That's very true, Julie. When you mentioned the time factor, I had a thought. I think that I fell into this very accidentally. My children all left, and a friend called me that I hadn't seen in a while, and she asked me out for coffee. And when we went out, she said, she also had 4 children, and she said, I'm really struggling. That, after my last child has left the home and I'm struggling. And I've been going to counseling, and my counselor said, find some women who are in your same stage of life and spend time with them. And she said, we're friends on social media, and I knew you as a mom, and I knew how much committed you were and how much you loved your children, and you seemed to be happy. Could we start meeting and talking? And I was like, I don't know that I have anything to offer. But from that one conversation, a lot of things have come since then. And one of the things about time, you said you could feel like, is this okay for me to spend time on now?
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I would encourage every single mom that's listening to this is that not only is it okay, the best thing you can do is take time, even to just rest, sit, think about what you want to do. The worst thing would be to just go fill up your time with other things that maybe aren't the best things. You have so much more to offer, more now than you probably ever have in your whole life. So just to take time to figure out what that is. And also to do some things that you've put off. Like, I mean, this is the silliest example. Growing up and having 4 children, I made sure my children all had clothes and shoes. And so buying clothes for myself was never on the top of the list.
Mm-hmm.
After my kids left and we got them married and through college, I was like, I'm going to buy whatever fashion I want to buy. I'm going to dress however I want to dress. I'm going to buy the cool shoes that I always would have loved to have. And guess what? I have zero guilt, and I don't even think it's shallow. I think it's fun. And, I just want to free everybody up to say, God might call you to do something so deep. You may have a purpose out there that you never dreamed of. He might call you to have coffee with your best friend once a month and travel halfway, anything.
Right.
Be open to anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, let's talk about ways parenting changes in midlife, because you said that you are still a mom, but you're not really mothering. So, how did you find that looked in your life?
Yeah. Well, I think it's never too late, but, we're looking backwards. And I think that what I've learned from talking to moms is that it kind of probably would be good to start even at middle school or high school, just helping your children develop their own independent identity. Like most families are sort of like, they have an identity, like we are the Kings. This is what our family does. We're the Watsons. This is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point to change that to you are, Sam, who are you going to be and what are you going to do? And then just start to move them into independence, making their own decisions, so that when they do leave your home, you really are removing yourself more and more from that. Mm. And I think it's key when they get married. We all know when God said to Adam and Eve, leave your mother and father and cleave to each other. We have to remember they didn't even have a mother and father. Like it must be really important to leave your parents and be a new family. Mm-hmm. And so parenting changes in that you quit giving advice unsolicited. Mm-hmm. You quit bailing them out. I mean, not even if you tried to have good boundaries about that. Mm-hmm. You try to let them figure out ways to solve their own problems. Mm-hmm. Enjoy them more as peers. Mm-hmm. I think especially as my kids have started having children, that naturally happens a lot, where you can enjoy each other more just as peers, and that grows and grows over time.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard at first to accept that you're not the primary influence on that child anymore, and they're not looking to you for everything. But once you get a little bit used to it, it's actually kind of fun and a bit of a relief.
A relief, yeah.
I don't have to solve this person's problems anymore. I'm not financially responsible for them anymore.
Yes.
All I have to do is enjoy. It's not my job to, make sure that they're doing X, Y, and Z in their life anymore. There is a freedom in that for sure.
Yeah. You can cheer them on and you can pray.
Yes.
And
just, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the idea of just surrender, I can't even tell you how many times I say that word, because I can't and really shouldn't get involved in everything. And so a lot of times you just have to say, surrender. Mm-hmm. And there is so much joy in that, isn't there?
There really is. Yeah. And you start to realize that your kids are smarter than you thought. It's fun to see how they solve a problem or, what they end up doing. If you give them the space, they're probably going to surprise you and you'll be really proud of what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's fun to watch your adult children parent. their children.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Like things you had to tell them that they maybe balked against. Now they're telling their kids, like it's just fun to see that come full circle.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely is neat.
I think that is really the time everything does come full circle. That's the best word to describe it, because all of the things that they might have resented or laughed at you about as a parent or made fun of you about, you just have to not say, I told you so, because you see the exact things and they understand why now.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is so fun. Our first grandchild was a daughter. She was the daughter of our son. And there was something for me about seeing my man of a son taking care of, holding, loving a baby girl that just did something to my heart. I mean, it was just the weirdest, the sensitivity, the care and the nurturing, just a part of him that you don't, like a teenage boy growing up, you don't see that as much. And so I thought it was amazing watching that.
Yeah.
Oh, that is sweet. Yeah.
That's
really neat.
Well, Jenny, I remember from taking your play shop talking about how as moms, most of us probably spent a lot of years sacrificing our own needs and even preferences for our family. So what can women do to start taking better care of themselves? And again.
Yeah. To me, this is just such an important topic, because we don't even remember what we used to love or what we even want, or we didn't necessarily make conscious choices to always sacrifice. But I think most moms do it. So I feel like what a gift to stop and kind of figure out what you want to do. And I'll tell you this, I do have a guided journal for women that's super fun called Unwritten Travels, and it's not in stores. If you wanted it, you'd have to I'll give you my email address at the end. But it's just a fun thing to work through. You don't have to use that. Just really think about what you might want to do, what creative pursuits. Think about physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, relational, just the different areas of your life. Make some fun goals. Think about what you might even want to do. And I will tell you this. I'm going to try to get specific here. I'm going to make it brief, hopefully. If you will write down each one of the areas of your life and say, how do I think my life is right now on a scale of 1 to 10, relationally, with my husband or with friendships? How is it? And you say, oh, I think I'm about a 6. Then journal, what would it look like if it were a 10? What would that be for me? And do that in each area of your life. I think a couple of things will happen. I actually do sit down with women and do this with them, and it works every time. What you see how intertwined all of the areas of your life are. If you start working on, you say, I need to work on fitness. I want to work on getting healthy and getting in shape. Even if you say beauty and while aging, that's what I want to work on. You will see that might end up flowing into other areas of your life, because you will start walking with friends, or you'll start eating healthier, which will make you pursue new cooking and new recipes and it's amazing how that works. And then the other thing that happens is that you realize how close your life is to being your ideal life. When you say, oh, relationally, I think I'm a 4. What would it take to be a 10? I just want a couple of new friends that are in my same life stage, that we can, go to look at historic homes together, or whatever it is you enjoy. It really isn't that hard to pursue that and find it. It's not that hard to get to where you're like all of a sudden thinking, wow, this is great. And after you do that activity, was that clear? Write down the areas of your life, kind of give yourself a score. How are things going in my life as far as health and fitness? How are things going as far as finances on a scale of 1 to 10? And then ask yourself the question, what would it look like if it were a 10? Journal about that. Then after you do that, pick one to possibly 3 at max goals.
Mm-hmm.
Start working on those things, and it all flows into each other. I mean, it's amazing how that works. And I think it's super important to do for those
Mm-hmm.
2 reasons. Seeing how
Yeah.
close your life is to great, and how easy it is to take some simple steps that impact in a big way.
Yeah, I think that was one of my favorite classes because if this is the same class, you had to start off by listing some favorites that we had,
Yes.
favorite colors, foods, activities, and that it was almost hard to do because we had forgotten our favorites. We had forgotten our preferences because I know I would just say, like, on Sunday afternoon, we're trying to find a place to eat. I didn't care to go to my favorite. I just wanted everybody else to be happy. So
Yes.
I ate food I didn't really love just to keep everybody happy. So yeah, you've got to take a step back and even try to remember what you like.
Yes. And the homework or the home play for that week was to add a few favorites into your week. And like I remember, buy a candle in your favorite scent, or eat your favorite candy bar, drink your favorite soft drink. And what's funny? That page, the finding your favorites, that activity, it's super hard for some people to even remember or think about what allow themselves to think about what their favorites are.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I know one of the fears that comes up that a lot of times we don't even want to admit to ourselves is we think, what is empty nest marriage going to be like? Because we think, oh, now there's all this time to fill, and I've already been talking to this person for 25 to 30 years. Do we even have anything new to talk about? And what do we like to do together anymore? And it's just, I don't know, it can feel a little daunting because you've gotten so used to everything being filled up by kids. It's hard to imagine just the 2 of you again. So what advice do you give women in that area?
That's a big one, isn't it? Because when you're empty nesters, there's one thing that remains and is left behind, and it's the person that's sleeping in the bed with you if you're married.
Right.
And of course, for moms that aren't married, obviously that's their energies directed into female friendships and, the potential, I guess, even dating again after the kids leave. But for those of us that are married, I think this is so significant. My husband and I would have told you that we had a really great marriage when we were raising our children. And we certainly did not have a bad marriage. But after they left, we realized how much we were just side by side working as a team, getting everybody where they needed to go, figuring out logistics, a lot of logistics. So now they're gone. And we did make a very concerted effort to refocus on each other. We did things like, there's a subscription service where, it's a book. It's I'm going to have to look at the name of it, but it's like a dating book. It has scratch off dates in it. And we bought one of those and just started trying to do things that were outside the box we may never have done before. We even for every Friday night, we started having a martini. And we had never done anything like that before. It was just like such a grown-up activity. And so for a while, we did that every Friday night, and it was just something silly and special we looked forward to. Started trying to, at least once a month, if not more, find a concert in our area or something to go do with another couple, like go on a double date. We didn't have to plan that many activities when our kids were at home because they dictated a lot of what we did. So I do think this is important. I mean, I remember we went to someone's birthday, an adult birthday party in a bowling alley. I remember us driving home going, well, that was fun. Do we like bowling? Maybe we like bowling. Like just actively pursuing connection and fun together more than we ever had before, except for before we had children.
Right. And that is all new territory. Yeah. Now, how did you find your people to go out with? Because I know sometimes you can kind of be caught in limbo where some of your friends are still raising kids. Some maybe are fully on the empty nest. Do you have any advice for people?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm okay. We did some things outside the box for us. We joined a gourmet cooking supper club kind of thing, where
Oh,
once a month we got together with these. There were four couples, an acquaintance that I didn't even know that well, organized it, and just was. She was actually the one looking for other people to connect with, and
mm,
we. I don't even consider myself a gourmet cook in any way.
mm-hmm.
And now I've been in this like over 5 years. I don't, and once a
Uh-huh.
month we plan a menu and get together. We are really involved in our church. So there were a lot of opportunities to get in a community group or find people that way. And then also some of our friends who also were kids were graduate, our children's friends, parents,
Mm-hmm.
we did connect with them a lot and invite
Mm-hmm.
them to go do things.
Mm-hmm.
Neighbors. I mean, it's putting yourself out there and
Mm-hmm.
just continuing to not be discouraged and pursue relationships with people until you
Mm-hmm.
find people that both of you like. Because we all know that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that happens where you really like one person, but then your husband doesn't really connect, or
Mm-hmm.
vice versa. So just have to keep trying.
Yeah. That's great
Yeah.
advice. I
Yeah,
love that gourmet cooking idea.
Yeah.
Because then if there's an activity, there's not as much pressure on the relationship.
that's true. That's true. And there are, even as far as cooking, there are lots of places around that have cooking classes or
Mm.
have
Mm-hmm.
near us. They're just opened a store called the House of Bread, and they give bread baking
Mm-hmm.
classes. And I keep thinking we're going to go do that one day. We
Mm-hmm.
haven't yet, but just looking for things in your area.
Right.
I'll be honest, we made some friends. We moved to this area when I was 7 months pregnant with my first child. So
Mm.
we knew, my husband moved here with his job. We knew no one.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually made some friends through even taking a Lamaze class.
Mm.
Mhm.
When you're the one looking for friendships,
Mm-hmm.
you're the one that kind of is going to have to initiate and
Mm.
invite,
Mm-hmm.
because people that have already lived here and already settled a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times have family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they're not available, but I would
Yeah.
encourage every woman to just kind of have to put themselves out there a little bit. And it is different. It is
Right.
different making friends.
Yeah, and I like your point that it's not even necessarily just all couple friends. Even women have the time now to just rediscover their women friendships. I think a lot of that gets put to the back burner when you have sports all weekend or, this or that going on with your kids. And now you have the freedom to plan a weekend trip or to play pickleball together, or I don't know, like just do things together that you might not have even thought about doing when you both were so tied to like the school schedule.
This is all intertwining here.
Mm.
So the women friendships is a huge part of the marital relationship
Mm.
adjustments,
Mm-hmm.
because your husband may or may not be able to carry or desire to carry all of your feelings and all of the conversation that you want to have now,
Mm.
that maybe got taken up with relating to children, and it can be lonely to not have a place to talk about all the things you want to talk about. Or he may also be in grief and not be able to talk about all the same things. I think
Mhm.
women relationships are just integral in healthy marital relationships a
That's
That's
lot
a
of the
good
times.
point.
that's an
Yeah.
awesome point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely true. I remember once my husband shared that a male friend of his told him that his wife had kind of gone a little bit crazy after their oldest left. And it was said in like a not good way. And I remember making a mental note to myself, like, don't be crazy. But how do you not be crazy?
Yeah. You just be crazy with your women friends
That's
Right,
right.
right,
who don't think you're crazy.
right.
Yeah.
We'll keep our walks up, Marie.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
as I was approaching the empty nest, I found that I got this question a lot. Like, are you going to go back to work? What are you going to do? And I just wondered if you found that a lot of women do choose that route? Like that is the only fulfilling thing, or do you find that a lot of women do find fulfillment in not going back to work?
Well, I think that, again, this is a personal choice. There are a lot of women who maybe need to go back to work financially to get kids through college or whatever that choice is. And then if it's almost like the more freedom you have, the harder the decisions are. Because if you don't need to go back to work financially, then it is a hard choice. I had thought that I would go back to work at some point, and then I haven't. I think I am in the most fulfilling time of my entire life. I feel like I have meaningful work in my life every day. Now, that's the goal. What is meaningful work for you? And I don't think that necessarily has to mean going back to a job where you get paid and you're somewhere, 8 to 5 every day. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. So I do think the legitimate question is, what is meaningful work for me? And then to just hold on to what that is for you and move forward. And then figuring that out is the hard part. And it changes all the time. I have been involved in women's ministry at my church for years, and I've decided I'm going to step away from that next year because I'm also doing some other things. That's all volunteer. It's not a job I get paid for.
Right.
And I feel like I'm in a period where things are changing again, and I'm coming upon some other new things to do. So it's always going to change. But I do think the meaningful work question is important. I just don't think it has necessarily anything to do with going back to a full-time job or not.
Yeah. And that's a good point to remember, is that whatever you choose, it probably won't stay the same. It'll be seasonal, or, things change and needs change.
Yeah.
Are the things that you've gotten involved in as you've gone through the years of empty nesting, were they anything that you would have predicted when you first started, or have they all been new surprises?
I'm going to say new surprises, honestly. I was a school teacher, an elementary school teacher, and then I quit my job, and I was a stay-at-home mom with part-time things here and there. The empty nest focus has been the most delightful surprise of my life. Never would I have thought about, never even entered my mind. I ended up taking a certification to be a life coach, and I don't even hardly tell anyone that because it feels like, I'd like to say like life direction more than like I don't think I do. I don't know what people stereotypically think a life coach does, but from that, there has been something that's developed in me. Like, I have a heart to help people find out what they want to do with their life for the next decades, and to have hope and joy, and let this be the best time ever. The best is not in the past. I mean, even when adults would tell my kids, like, enjoy these years, these are the best ever. I just want to say that is so not true. That is not true. I mean, I am in the best ever. And we have had, my husband had cancer. He's doing great now. We've had hard things happen. It's not like, my kids have had hard things happen. It's not been like, oh, we have not had a single hard thing. Going through those hard things has almost made everything even sweeter, and I appreciate it more. And I don't even know if I got off track on your question, but I just, yes, everything's been a surprise to me. I don't know what I thought I would be doing. I feel way younger than I am. Or I guess I just thought at this age, I remember being a young child, and people would say, what do you think you'll be doing in the year 2000? Like when I was in second grade or something. And I was born in 1960. So I would say, gosh, I'm going to be 40 years old. I wonder if I'm still going to be alive. I really remember thinking when I was, in second grade. And now I think, oh my goodness, I'm 63 years old. And I feel like, well, let me just say, there are some things I guess I've had to decide, okay, these things are now not going to happen. Yeah, you do have to. It's a reality check on some things. But overall, I am just, I'm just delighted at where things are going, and it's not where I would have ever thought.
That's why we just love your encouraging outlook.
Well, thank you,
Jenny, because it gives hope to all the women who aren't quite there yet. Later, I'm going to ask you another question related to that. But first, I do want to ask, because I'm sure there are other people wondering, is there a way to prepare for the empty nest before you reach it, or to avoid some of the pitfalls that we've talked about today?
I want to ask you guys that, and then I'll answer that. Now that you're there and have gone through it, what would you answer to someone about that?
Well, a few episodes back, I did say that when my second child went to college, I started getting very nervous about the empty nest. And that was when I took your play shop, your workshop. And I remember I found it so helpful. I really enjoyed it. But now, when all my kids actually did leave for college last August, I would say that even though I tried to prepare, you can't really prepare. You think you might know what it's going to be like, but you don't really know what it's going to be like. And just like I don't really know what it's going to be like when all my kids don't come home on breaks anymore either. Like, I can talk to people about that, but I can't make myself emotionally be there and ready for it before I'm actually physically there. Do you think that's true?
I think Marie and I both said that we thought we could prepare in a way that would allow us to skip over the transition, the hard part. And you really can't. You have to go through that. And that's where you discover all of this that you're talking about. So I really appreciated your workshop because I was in that phase, and it just made me aware of things I could do. And it was very encouraging that there's hope on the other side. And I think that's where it helps to talk to people who are already on the other side. It's just very hard to see when you're in the middle of it. It can be sad and lonely and,
Well, okay, this
uncertain.
is what I'm hearing you guys say. The number one thing is just awareness. To be aware that you're going into a transition, and that to not, have the expectation that things are going to be different and hard, and give yourself time to work through whatever's next. And then my only piece of advice, I do love, read a book, talk to people, go to a workshop. But the number one thing, just on a day-to-day basis, and this is a common, almost a cliche advice, but it is pertinent to this stage of our life. Just do the next right thing every day. Just do the next right thing. Like, what is the next right thing to do today? When you're feeling sad, when you're feeling lonely, when you're feeling like I have no idea what to do. Go have a conversation. Go do something, one of your favorites, like Julie said. Just do one thing. And, step by step by step, those things all build up. I'm talking with such confidence and hope and joy, and it's real. I'm not making it up. My oldest child is 36. So, that has been some years. And I had 4 children in less than 6 years. So they all transitioned out fairly quickly. So my youngest child is 30. So now, if you count them leaving home at 18, that's 12 years ago. They're all married. They all have children. So I have the benefit. We have been, several of my kids have had hard things happen in their life. But I have the benefit now of seeing them all as independent, married people out on their own. I've had several years to get to where I am now.
Right.
And that's the hope I want to leave people with, is that you have probably a lot of years left. I'm 63. I very high probability I'll live a couple of more decades. We never know. But, do you, and what Julie said about your career, that things change and we transition. I can't really imagine wanting to do anything for 20 years. I hope I do transition some. I hope things
Mhm.
do change.
That's true.
I'm sure I'll have many different interests before, if I get 20 more years to live. I'm
Mhm.
sure I will have a lot of things. The decisions and the things I'm doing now,
Mhm.
we may talk 10 years from now and all three be at a different great place.
Right. Yeah, one question that came to my mind as we were talking earlier was how long is too long to transition, I guess, because I think people like to know, like, how long can I give myself, or am I taking an abnormally long amount of time? And I know there's not like a definitive, but I'm sure people have asked you that before.
Yeah, I do have an idea about that.
Okay.
I want to say this. Not everyone's children go to college.
Mm.
And, we tend to just think, oh, yes, everyone's children just graduate from high school, go on to higher education, become doctors. I mean, we just,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not the road that everybody takes. And I really respect and appreciate everyone's paths and everyone's children's paths.
Mm-hmm.
But the example I'm going to give is going to pertain to college.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pretend, your children leave high school and they go to pursue a college degree. Mm-hmm. And we know now that sometimes that takes longer than 4 years, but the standard would be 4 years. Mm-hmm. I personally think it's really good to make like 4-year goals. And I don't know if you remember this, but we did do this in Birds of a Feather in our empty nest group. Mm. If you think like, I would like to, 4 years from now, this is the example I used in our class. 4 years from now, I would like to have a garden and really do some work in our backyard. I would like to have our backyard fixed up and have a garden in the backyard. That's something I like to do. Well, okay, 4 years from now, that's where I want to be. Mm-hmm. It's really easy to break up things and say, okay, well, year 1, I'm going to buy books about gardening and I'm going to talk to my neighbor that has a garden. Mm. Year 2, I'm going to start planning a design for my backyard. Mm-hmm. Year 3, and 4 years from now, I want to be sitting on my patio eating a salad that I grew out of my garden. Mm-hmm. To give yourself long-term goals, like give yourself some time and say, by the time my child graduates from college, or by the time 4 years rolls around, I want to be happy about where they're going in life. I want to have some things in my life that are fulfilling to me. Mm-hmm. Give yourself time. I do think it's crazy to think, and I actually think it's one of the biggest mistakes we could ever make, to send our kids off or consider them grown and then just jump into something else without thinking it has to be done like that and over and settled. Mm-hmm.
I love that you're giving permission to have space, because I think we usually try to rush ourselves, or we try to think, well, I didn't get it done in 3 months. I haven't come to any new conclusions in 3 months, so I'm failing at the empty nest or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
Well, I don't think any of us ever want to be uncomfortable. And a lot of all this comes out, the answers come out of that discomfort.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, Julie.
Yeah. Well, do you happen to have any inspiring stories you can leave us with of women that maybe you remembered, who were struggling at first and then kind of found a way through to something great for their second half?
So many, just so many stories. Let me think here off the top of my head. Okay, well, I have one friend who has pursued learning a second language and is learning Spanish, and has spent several years learning Spanish. Now think about how that transfers. Mm-hmm. Okay, so think about in the area of volunteering, all of the things that opens up when you know Spanish. Mm-hmm. Think about in the area of travel, all of the things that could come out of pursuing Spanish. All of the things that have opened up in her life just by making one step to say, okay, I am sad. I don't know what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. Her husband retired. So she retired, and then to just pick one thing and look at where that takes you, all the
Mm.
things you could do with that one thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I had these two women that came to my empty nest group, and they were thinking about transitioning to the empty nest and trying to be proactive about it. And they went out and they started this podcast
Oh.
called Midlife Matters. And I would consider them a huge success story of taking their transition time and doing something with it that impacted other people and helped themselves work through the process. So I would say that you two would be considered a great success story of someone who has done that well.
Oh, thank you,
Aw,
Jenny.
thank you.
When we think about success stories, we need to cheer on the little changes, like you said, because
Mhm.
from little changes flow big changes. Like I love that Spanish example because it's just like your example of writing down where your life is now and then what do you need to make it a 10. Well, they all kind of improve each other. So learning
Mhm.
one new thing, you never know where that's going to lead. And just like,
Right.
that lunch with your friend, you wouldn't have known what that would lead, that you would start giving workshops and become like an empty nest in quotes expert. Like you don't
Yes.
know like one small thing. It kind of goes back to what you said about do the next right thing or the next thing in
Yeah.
front of you.
Mhm. Last on that topic is we always hear, and I know there's books written about it, there's podcasts about it, how women say yes to too much
Mm.
and you get too overly involved when you're at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to learn to say no. And that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a whole argument to be made for saying yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had a time period in my life where I did try to say yes to as much as possible that I could. And so many good things came out of that. Because here's the bottom line. You can always say no if you change your mind.
Mm.
Like we can always change our mind. Anything's worth a try. Let's say you think, I want to be in a book club. I've never been in a book club. I'm going to say yes. And you get in the book club and you don't really enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Quit. We told our kids all these years, like, don't be a quitter. If you make a commitment, you stick with it. Well,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? That's something that's really comes with this time of life. We have the freedom to quit.
Mm.
We don't have to stick with anything. I mean, if we made a commitment that impacts other people's well-being,
Sure.
obviously that's a different story.
Mm-hmm.
But just to open yourself up to try things, knowing that you're not making a big commitment for the rest of your life to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can try new things and just see how they go. Say yes to new things. And then if it's not your thing,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't, no
Mhm.
harm. You
Mhm.
tried.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Jenny, I know that you have some ways that people can get in contact with you. Do you want to share those with listeners?
Well, I would love to give out my email address, Jennifer V as in victory, Jennifer V Watson @gmail.com. If you would like to talk more or have any questions, I do have some resources I could send people, and I totally open to talking more if anyone's interested.
Yeah, and I'll put that in our show notes. And I know that for anyone that is in Nashville area, you do offer your workshops twice a year. Do you want to tell people about those?
You can contact me if you're interested. And we meet for 6 weeks. Each session is set up like a different party theme. So there's a depth to this. I want women to get great resources and I want it to be life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
I also want it to be filled with joy and fun. It's very important to me to connect with other women and have fun doing it. So each session you come, it'll be set up like a different party theme, and we will talk about all kinds of different areas of adjusting to the empty nest. I charge $125 for the 6 sessions, and you can just contact me via email if you're interested, and I will let you know when the next session is available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Julie and I both really enjoyed those. I mean, I think they're
Yes.
totally worth it. There were just a lot of things that I got out of it, and I should probably actually do something like it now that I'm actually in the empty nest.
Yeah.
I did it a little bit early, but it was because I wanted to prepare. Like I was already getting nervous about it. But
Marie, I can tell you there are more people than I can even count who have done it twice. The last one I had a woman came, and she had come when her first child left home. And then she called and said, when is your next one? She came back after her last child left home. And it was so interesting just comparing where she was both times. And I think both times were helpful, but different.
Yeah, because we are always changing. Well, Jenny, we really appreciate you coming on today. This was so great to get to talk with you. And I wish that listeners could I know they can hear it in your voice, but also Jenny is just such a vibrant person in person. And so if you do get the chance to take her workshop, we highly recommend it. And if not, share this podcast with other people that might be going through this, because I just think you have such an encouraging attitude, and it's the kind of thing that we all want to hear.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I've so enjoyed getting to know both of you, and I appreciate this opportunity very much.
Yes, it's been great. Thank you so much. I so enjoyed your class. Like you said, it was a lot of in-depth information, but it was very fun too. You did a great job.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Listeners, if you want to come and find us, you can find us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast, or you can email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com, or you can go to our show notes and I will include the different things that Jenny's talked about and also her email. We just hope that this is helpful to so many people. And listeners, I also just want to say that we missed Mindy today. She is on spring break. She's on a cruise with her family. She's saying yes to travel. So, Mindy, we missed you, and we'll talk with you next week.
Yes, Mindy, we missed you. I hope you're having a great time.
Once again, thank you, Jenny and Julie. This was a great conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
All right.
All right. We'll talk to you next week. We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.